The Walt Disney Company is struggling when it comes to Snow White 2025, starring both Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot. We know that this movie in particular led to a lot of issues, not just within Disney, but actually how Disney is perceived by the general public.
Honey, let me tell you something I never thought I'd see in all my days. A Disney princess stumbling around, looking lost, and begging for an audience that never showed up. Yes, I'm talking about Rachel Zegler. 1 minute, this girl was bragging about folks lining up around the block just to see her. The next minute, she's standing in an empty theater, holding a popcorn cup with her own face on it. Looking like even the walls don't care who she is. And baby, that's just the start of this juicy mess. So buckle up because the tea here is piping hot and things only get wilder as we go along. You might have seen that viral clip where Rachel was standing there all proud, saying something along the lines of, "Y'all, despite my flaws, despite my cracks and breaks, folks will always wait in line to see me."
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
She poured out this big speech, acting like she was this priceless piece of art in some fancy museum. And guess what? Everybody's first reaction was, "Girl, who do you think you are?" Now, don't get me wrong, confidence is beautiful, but confidence can also blind you if you're too busy believing your own hype. People online ate that clip up, though maybe not in the way Rachel hoped. It turned into a running joke. Memes popped up, people started making snarky remarks. Wait in line for what, sis? Free popcorn refills. The internet can be cruel when someone gets a little too bold. And I have to admit, a lot of us started watching that fiasco the same way we watch a cat video. Mouth open, eyes wide, half laughing and half cringing. But that was only scratching the surface of her downhill ride. Nobody could have guessed how painfully real her little fantasy would get checked in public. Because what happened next was so awkward, folks still talk about it like it's that train wreck they can't stop looking at. Let's roll straight into the moment she decided to film herself going to her own movie. Girl, let me set the scene. Rachel strolls up to the theater with a group of friends, each of them carrying these gaudy popcorn buckets plastered with her face. Now, I don't know about you, but I like my popcorn without an extra helping of vanity. But hey, if she wants her mug on a popcorn tub, that's her choice. Anyway, she rolls up to the ticket taker all proud. He looks at her like, "Yes, ma'am, can I help you?" She goes, "Tickets, please." And he's like, "Right, so for which movie?"
Please?
For which movie?
Oop, if that's not the biggest reality check in the world, I don't know what is. The man literally has no clue who she is, and she's standing there expecting fireworks and maybe a red carpet. But that's not even the worst part. They all pile into the theater, and sis decided to keep the cameras rolling, documenting every awkward second. Once inside, the place is emptier than a carnival at midnight. Nobody, zero, not a single living soul in the seats. She's over there giggling and making faces like some comedic routine. Except the joke's on her. Everyone's reaction online was basically, "Girl, you didn't have to post this." Because sometimes the best way to avoid humiliation is to keep your phone in your purse. But hey, if she wants to share that cringe with the world, I guess we can only say thank you for the free entertainment. Still, that embarrassing moment was just the beginning of something much bigger, an all-out box office flop, or maybe I should call it a meltdown, that would end up haunting her name and Disney's money on a global scale. Now, let's talk raw numbers, because if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then those box office receipts are worth 1,000,000. Word on the street is that Rachel's new Snow White flick cost Disney a whopping $350 million. Girl, that is not chump change. In Hollywood speak, that means they needed at least $700 million at the box office just to break even. But how much did they actually earn? Let's just say, not even a fraction of that. Meanwhile, a different film, let's call it the Minecraft movie, went on to pull in around $300 million worldwide. Domestically, it soared past $160 million in just a handful of days. Minecraft isn't exactly the next Hollywood masterpiece, but it's fun, family-friendly, and apolitical. And guess what? It raked in way more money in a shorter time. So while Rachel Snow White crawled to a tiny $72 million in 3 whole weeks, Minecraft was busy partying at the bank. It got folks online saying, "Disney, you see what happens when you mess with a classic." Because the new version of Snow White was apparently so modernized that the only things it kept from the original were the title and maybe an apple. Meanwhile, the general audience was over here saying, "Nah, sis, we'll stick to something that won't lecture us, thanks." And it got even worse from there, especially for poor Rachel. Because once you're the face of a big movie that bombs, everyone suddenly has your name in their mouth in the worst possible ways. What added extra heat to Rachel's meltdown was her own mouth, if we're being real. Girl's got a strong set of political opinions, and she wasn't shy about sharing them, even when folks told her it might be hurting her brand. She hopped on social media, interviews, you name it, and basically told people how she really felt about certain issues. Now, I'm not saying she can't speak her mind, but let's be honest. Hollywood can turn on you faster than a rotating door. One slip, and folks decide they're offended, bored, or just plain over you. And that's exactly the vibe people started getting with Rachel. Next thing you know, the paparazzi caught her looking downright miserable while walking her dog through New York City. The picture splashed across gossip sites. Rachel in sweatpants, hair messy, a green star sticker on her forehead. Don't ask me what that was all about, honey, because I do not know. Everyone started speculating. Is she depressed? Is she in hiding? Is she rethinking her life choices? In reality, she might have just been taking a break. But the internet loves to spin a story, and the story was that Rachel Zegler, who once bragged about unstoppable success, might be hitting rock bottom. But the biggest shock came when her epic failure apparently forced Disney's hand in an even more dramatic direction. When your face is tied to a massive financial meltdown, you can trust the folks upstairs at Disney are going to start asking, do we keep going or do we pull the plug? And that's exactly what they did, y'all. They started pulling plugs left and right, like they were shutting down a carnival ride mid-spin. Word broke out that Disney decided to pause, or maybe even cancel, a live-action remake of the beloved movie Tangled. Now, Tangled ain't some random flick. A lot of fans adore that story for its humor, heart, and that gorgeous animation. People have been clamoring to see it in live action. But after watching Snow White sink faster than a broken ship, Disney apparently said, hold up, let's not set more money on fire. According to whispers in the industry, that big flop taught Disney a lesson. Messing with classic princess stories is a gamble. If you're gonna modernize them, you'd best do it in a way that doesn't alienate the folks who hold those stories close to their hearts. And clearly, the folks at Disney are starting to realize that. Nobody wants to lose a chunk of their paycheck or see their beloved brand ridiculed online. So Tangled, for now, is on ice. Maybe they'll defrost it someday, or maybe they'll toss it in the vault. Either way, the general feeling is that the Snow White disaster was the catalyst. And Disney's panic doesn't stop there. Studios love a good plan. They schedule releases, line up toy merchandise, start marketing tie-ins. It's like a giant machine. But if a single cog breaks, the whole operation grinds to a halt. And in this scenario, Rachel's meltdown was the broken cog that made them realize, wait, maybe folks really don't want us fiddling with certain classics too much. Because you can have the most advanced CGI and star-studded cast, but if you can't get people to actually buy tickets, then what's the point? Yet, that's not where the controversy ends. Because now fans are raising their voices like never before, questioning the entire process of recasting and rewriting classics. Boy, oh boy, the fan outrage is real. And I don't just mean casual viewers who watch a movie once a month. I'm talking about the diehard Disney loyalists, the folks who grew up on these fairy tales, who had the VHS tapes, the DVDs, and the plush toys. They are livid, like heartbroken and furious all at once. See, the casting of Rachel Zegler as Snow White was already ruffling feathers. Snow White was famously described in the original story as having skin white as snow. Yet Disney went in a completely different direction with the casting choice. But this isn't even about Rachel's ethnicity for many fans. It's about the complete overhaul of a timeless character. Suddenly, the story is changed, the dwarfs are changed, the message is changed. When you meddle with a formula folks have loved for generations, you risk stepping on toes, big time. And that's exactly what happened here. The audience reaction wasn't, oh, we're so happy for new representation. It was more like, what in the world did you do to my childhood? Add in the fact that Rachel herself was out here mocking critics, talking about how people would line up no matter what. And you've got a recipe for a public relations nightmare. Then, of course, there's the talk about how these studios keep forcing a modern agenda into fairy tales people cherish. Audiences want a fresh spin. Sure, that can be cool, but not when you toss out everything that made the original lovable in the first place. And Rachel, as the face of that fiasco, became a lightning rod for all the criticism, fair or unfair. But even after all this, there was one last twist that made everyone go, wait, is Rachel Zegler about to vanish from Hollywood for good? The twist, sweetie, is the lesson this fiasco taught the world. Your star can rise fast, but it can fall even faster, especially when the internet is involved. Rachel was plucked from obscurity, dazzled the public for a moment, and then took a turn that felt more like a cautionary tale than a Hollywood success story. One day she's the new Disney princess. The next day folks are posting memes of her wandering around looking lost in a big city. Some people say she let the hype go to her head, talking big and under-delivering. Others say she just got caught in the crossfire of corporate greed, poor creative decisions, and the unstoppable machine that is social media drama. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But either way, her meltdown is a prime example of what happens when an actor's public persona overshadows the movie they're supposed to be promoting. If your main headlines are about you clapping back at fans or posting humiliating videos, folks get bored or irritated real quick. Now, industry insiders are whispering that Rachel's next moves might involve stepping away from the spotlight for a while. Maybe she'll rebrand, pick smaller roles, and try to rebuild her image from scratch. That can happen. Hollywood loves a comeback story. But whether or not the world is interested is a whole different question. Folks are already moving on to the next scandal, the next star, the next bit of drama. And in today's digital age, you only get so many second chances before the public tunes you out completely. And here's what this all means moving forward. If there's one takeaway from this fiasco, it's that big studios like Disney better tread carefully. Audiences have a voice now more than ever. And if they don't like your remix of a beloved classic, they will roast you online until you regret ever tampering with it. We're talking memes, rants, petitions, enough noise to shake even the biggest corporate giant. And stars like Rachel, they're learning that you can't rely on a fancy brand name to protect you from a bad reputation. You might still get that initial spotlight, but if the audience turns on you, baby, it's game over. So, to break it all down, Rachel Zegler went from bragging that we'd all line up to see her to standing in an empty theater, like the punchline to her own joke. Disney poured hundreds of millions into a movie that barely made a splash, and that flop triggered a whole chain reaction of canceled princess dreams and a tidal wave of fan outrage. The downfall was swift, dramatic, and loaded with life lessons for anyone watching. Will Rachel make a comeback? Maybe. Will Disney learn not to fix what ain't broke? Possibly. But the message is clear. If you're going to take a beloved classic and flip it upside down, you best be ready for the wrath of fans who aren't here for half-baked reboots. And if you're the actor at the center of it all, get your attitude and your social media on point, or be ready to face the meltdown head on. Thanks for supporting the Gossip Wire. If you made it this far in the video, make sure to like and subscribe for more of the hottest celebrity news online.